a big crowd and folks that are interested in learning more about virtual programs. I'll go ahead and introduce myself a little later, but just some community requests. Please feel free as you'd like to put questions in the chat. I can see that up on my screen. Or please feel empowered to unmute yourself and ask some questions. I'll leave time for questions at the end, but I'll keep an eye on the chat and respond to it as we go, so that you're able to have your voices heard. And I'm excited to talk to you about this topic. So I'm going to give you a little overview of what we're going to be chatting about today. So we're going to be chatting about virtual programs today, and mostly from a perspective of why would you want to do a virtual program? Why are they important? And what makes them different from your traditional study abroad programs? So we're going to be talking about, we're going to unpack what a virtual program means. We're going to talk about the 5 reasons to love virtual programs. We're going to do a deep dive in each of those sections and look at some data to, support the idea of virtual programming. Then we're going to talk about your options through ISA just briefly. And those are global remote and career semester internship experiences. And then finally, we're just going to talk about what's next and getting started and how you can connect with Locke if these opportunities look interesting to you. So with that being said, I'll go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Zoe Crow-Barnes, and I am a regional director at ISA, but I specifically cover the state of Texas. So I work with UTSA, specifically with Locke and with students at the university to try to get them abroad or having a global experience, whether that be in person or virtual. I've been with the organization for a little over 3 years now, and I absolutely love it. And I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience as it pertains to in-person versus virtual experiences a little bit later, but I'm really happy to be talking to you today. So I'm going to start with a question for you all as we frame this conversation. So when you think of virtual programs, what's one word that comes to your mind? And if you wouldn't mind putting that in the chat. Online, great. Yeah, not in person. Zoom. Yeah, we're all Zoom fatigued. Asynchronous. We all had to learn what that word meant this year. All right, feel free to continue to put words in the chat. But when I've asked this question before, some responses I've gotten from folks is, not international, replacement, alternative. I see portable in there as well. So those are sometimes the responses we get, which really is indicative of the way that we're kind of looking at virtual programs. So I want to go ahead and shift the narrative a little bit about what virtual programs are. And my expectations versus reality meme didn't come out as clear as I'd hoped. But the way that virtual programs kind of came about was as a response to the pandemic, right? If we're not able to physically go abroad to Spain, then, let's just do a virtual program online where we learn Spanish. And I kind of want to shift that thinking. I think the expectation is that a virtual program is supposed to be a replacement or able to be swapped out for an in-person experience. And as I'm talking to my colleagues and other students around the country, what we're really focusing on is that it's an entirely different experience. So to stack it up and say that, being on Zoom, being not in person, being online is the same as being in Spain, that's just not the case. That's not the reality of the situation. However, it's a completely different experience that completely opens up the global world in a way that is accessible to everybody. And we'll be able to talk about, the different points of that. But thinking about it as almost a separate experience instead of a replacement of an experience has really helped me navigate and reshift the narrative about what a virtual program can be. So the $1 million question that I get often from folks is a remote internship worth it? And I've added I've added an anecdote if you'd like to read it from somebody that did a team-based 4-week internship through ISA that talks about, learning soft skills, padding his resume, giving him an international experience, even though it was remote. But we're going to go ahead and pack this question exactly. Is it worth it to do a remote program? And we're specifically going to be focusing on professional development opportunities like internships. So let's dive in and talk about the 5 reasons why a virtual program is for you. Number 1, learning to function in a global market. If COVID has taught us anything, it's in some regards, there are no borders, right? That you're able to hop on Zoom and you can be in a Zoom with somebody in South Korea. You can be on a Zoom with somebody in Germany. And that we can really almost break down borders by being virtual. So there's a lot of companies, there's some studies that have come out about companies that as a response to the pandemic have actually become more global and are asking folks to have those global fluency skills because again, this online community has sort of broken down those barriers. So building up those skills and learning to function in this ever-changing global market is really important. And that's something that a virtual experience, especially an international virtual experience, can really give you. So just to give you some facts and figures, we'll talk about the fact on the left, on the far left in the next section, saying 84% saw growth in essential soft skills. But these stats are from virtual interns who are doing programs. And a lot of them said, 87% said that they use their international experience to show to boost their skill set in an interview. So even though it wasn't an in-person international experience, they still defined it as an international experience and were still able to use that in an interview and on their resume to demonstrate how they're able to function in a global market. And then 82% agreed that having an international internship on their resume helped them stand out amongst their peers. Again, how did they define international? They defined it as having an internship with an international company. It didn't mean that they were in Dublin. It meant that maybe they were working with an Irish company located in Dublin online, but they were still able to gain those skills that employers saw. Next, number 2, building the soft skills that employers want. So what do employers want? If you take a look at the fact or the figure on the right side of the screen, you're going to see a number of competencies, and these are known as the 8 NACE competencies, and they include critical thinking and problem solving, teamwork and collaboration, professionalism and work ethic, oral and written communications, digital technology, leadership, career management, and global and multicultural fluency. And those are really the things that employers are looking for when you graduate. And you can see their average weighted ranking in terms of importance, but always at the top consistently is this idea of critical thinking and problem solving is always at the top. And I didn't include it in this slide, but some data that we've looked at is specifically in the business and then STEM field. So anything in the sciences, engineering, stuff like that. There's a large discrepancy between how students rate themselves in these categories and then how employers rate them. So typically, recent graduates tend to rate themselves a lot higher across these 8 competencies than employers do. So there's a large gap between the employer's expectation and what the student or the recent grad thinks they're offering. And again, that's where these programs are going to come in. So career readiness competencies, we have designed at least our internships and our career semester to be designed around the NACE career readiness competencies framework. So I've circled a couple that we specifically hit as part of your learning outcomes for a virtual program. Number one, that big one, critical thinking and problem solving, that you're able to walk away from a virtual experience with those skills. Number four, digital technology. And this is really what's going to separate the in-person intern from the online intern, is that you are developing these digital technological skills that employers are really looking for nowadays. And then finally, of course, number eight, global and intercultural fluency. Again, when we say this, we typically think, okay, we have to go to Morocco or we have to go to France in order to gain global and intercultural fluency. But as you'll see through these virtual internships, you're getting those skills as well, but you're just getting them in a different way. So you're still interacting with your coworkers in Denmark, and they might interact differently from you. Their business styles might be different from you, and as you're learning about those cultural differences, you're gaining that global and intercultural fluency. The next piece I want to talk about is affordability. Number three, a big reason to love virtual programs. And I just want to highlight for you the difference between a global remote internship, this is at least at ISA, and an in-person internship. So typically, an in-person internship through ISA is anywhere from $4,000 at its very cheapest to $9,000 at its most expensive. Why is there such a large variety? This is typically because of housing costs associated with living in another country for an extended period of time. So for example, Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam tends to have a lower cost of living, and that's around the $4,000 mark. But then London or Sydney has a really high cost of living, and that tends to come in closer to $7,000, $8,000, or $9,000 when you're factoring in your housing and your meals. That's not even factoring into the flight, the cost to get over there. It just ends up adding up and it becomes more expensive. What's really, really great about these global remote internships and virtual opportunities is they're just cheaper, just by the nature of the fact that you're on Zoom, you're in your apartment in San Antonio, maybe at your parents' house in Dallas, whatever the case may be. There's more options in terms of affordability. And you can see that our global remote internships come in at $1,550. And we'll go into, the different options that offers, but you can see there's a huge price discrepancy. So if you're thinking, maybe an international experience is out of my price range right now, take a look at an remote option as an alternative. Number four, let's talk about accessibility. And this has really been a conversation as we're starting to talk about virtual programs as a global experience is, 98% of students in college, if college enrolled students don't go abroad. It's about 2 to 3% that actually do go abroad. So there's a whole population of students that haven't been included in this global experience. So our job as international educators is to see how can we make globalization and global experiences more accessible to all of the folks that maybe couldn't go abroad before. So I'll tell you a little personal experience about my college experience and my international experience. So when I was in college, I was working a couple jobs. I was a part of a sorority, and I just remember that a lot of folks, specifically in my sorority, were really focused on going abroad for a whole semester. And it was kind of an expectation that like junior year that you would go to Barcelona or you go to Florence. And unfortunately, I wasn't one of those students. That wasn't something that was accessible to me at the time. I I just wasn't sure financially how I was going to get abroad for a whole semester. But then also in terms of accessibility, as I mentioned, I had about 2 campus jobs. At one point, I had 3 campus jobs at the same time just to get by in college. And I couldn't just pick up and leave for a semester because I had work and I had responsibilities and I had to stay, relatively close to Columbia, Missouri, which is where I went to school. Um, and then also I was really involved with Greek life. I was, involved on campus. I was really involved in dance marathon and making sure that that event went smoothly. At the time I was planning Pan-Hellenic recruitment. So I couldn't just, up and leave again because I had to be on campus. I had to be around. And I remember meeting with my study abroad office and kind of explaining that to them. Um, and they offered me a solution. They offered me a very short-term program over the summer and I was able to go abroad. But at the time when I was in college, a virtual opportunity really wasn't a part of the conversation in terms of accessibility. And what I was really looking for was those global competency skills. I was looking to boost my resume. I wanted to have that experience to set myself apart from my peers. And now looking back, if I would have had the opportunity to have an international and global professional development experience online, that would have been able to accommodate my work schedule and accommodate my other responsibilities in terms of clubs on campus, I would have taken it. So, in terms of accessibility, virtual global programs are a really good option. If you find yourself on that boat where you're like, hey, maybe I have a kid, maybe I have a job, maybe I can't get abroad, but you still want to develop those skills. Number 5, learning how to work remotely. And I add this because a lot of our student evaluations, when we got our student evaluations back from last semester, this was the biggest comment we got. It was not, about the project students worked on or, time zones, anything like that. It was the biggest skill that folks said they learned was learning how to work remotely. And think about the global market that you're going into after you graduate. COVID-19 has changed the way that we've looked at work, right? I know, for example, I'm going to start working remotely full time. I used to go into an office Monday through Friday, and that was a part of my schedule. And now I'm going to work full time remote. Employers, we've seen a trend recently as we've looked at some studies that employers are looking to offer the flexibility to work from home, if not work from home full time, not only to be competitive to candidates looking for a job, but also, you're saving money, right? If you're not renting out an office space, you're saving some money as a company. So learning how to work remotely and how to do that effectively is so important. And again, students were saying on our evaluations, like, I'm so glad I learned this skill. I'm so glad when I go into the job market that I know how to successfully work remotely. So, to help you develop that, we have what's called the Professional Development Toolbox that's available to all of our remote interns. And that's going to be a number of things. It's going to be career coaching. So, how do you work in this virtual space? How do you work online? How do you work remotely? And how are you still successful? We'll do some skill survey assessments. So, we'll kind of test all of your skills at the beginning of the program and at the end of the program, and we're going to see how you've grown. So, when you are putting it on a resume, that you're able to say, okay, you know what, my critical thinking skills grew X amount, and you can be really specific about it over the course of my remote internship. We offer a number of career development workshops to help you work remotely, to help you work on a team, to help you work across time zones, across barriers, to make sure that you're really successful in that virtual environment. And then finally, we have built into the program price, we have an ISA career readiness course that everyone is enrolled in. I will say some folks take it really seriously and they're all on board with the career readiness course. And that's usually if they're getting college credit for it. If you're not getting college credit for it and you're just doing it for the experience, Students do this as they will. They'll use it as a reflective activity, but oftentimes it's not graded as hard as folks who are getting the internship for credit. But these are just some of the ways that we support you while you're working remotely and making sure that you're getting those skills. So when you do enter the job market, that you're ready for this post-COVID remote work environment. So I wanted to share a little bit of a video with you, but I think I'll wait until the end to share it. But it's from Alex Gaskins, or Gaskins rather, and he's a Stevens Institute of Technology. And he's an alum of our summer internship program, and he basically like designed an app, and it's called My Time with Smartable. I'm gonna hold off and show this right before questions, just so you can see his experience. It's about 4 minutes long, but it's a really cool video, and I think y'all would really benefit from seeing it. So I'll hold off until the end, so I'm not disjointing the presentation. But just so you know, we will get back to Alex's story in a second. So quickly, let's talk about ISA options. And again, I'm going to be highlighting 2 options for you. The first is global remote internships, and the second is career semester if you're thinking about pursuing a virtual option. So just to give you a comparison, because I wanted you to have a point of reference, our on-site internships, they're full-time on-site, available in 11 countries in any field of study, 6, 8, 12 weeks, 32 to 40 hours a week. And there's a couple, options in terms of start dates if you're looking to go in person, as opposed to our global remote internships, where you have a couple of options in terms of, how you want to structure the internship. So we have a team-based approach, and these work really well if you are a business major, but also if you're maybe a freshman or a sophomore, and you're looking to do more of a consulting project with a university, with a company, the team-based project will be a good option for you. So the teams are typically made up of 4 to 6 students, and they're US-based students around the country. And they're going to be your team over the course of your internship. So a company in Australia actually provides you with a problem that's happening at their company, and y'all will act as consultants, and you will come up with a resolution to this company's issue over the course of your internship. And at the end of the internship, you will present your proposal to the Australian company. So it's a really cool opportunity if you're kind of looking to go into consulting work. If you're interested in that team-based approach, it's kind of a unique opportunity. And then the other option is an individualized placement. And this is pretty much for anyone else. Individualized placements are custom placed. So let's say you're a digital art major and you need a placement in South Korea. We'll do that for you. If you're a biology major, we'll do that for you. And we actually take your resume and your cover letter and we scout out across the US, or I'm sorry, not across the US, across the world rather, and give your resume to companies that meet your career goals and meet your major. So we really make it customizable to what you want to learn and to your learning outcomes. And that's, again, an individual placement. You're just working directly with the company throughout the course of your internship. So 2 different approaches that you really don't get on an on-site internship. You can either do the team-based, or you can do the individual placement. The other thing that's really cool about these global remote internships is you can do a 4-week, you can do an 8-week, you can do a 16-week, and you can do them full time. And that's structured, again, a lot like our in-person internships. But what makes them different is you can choose to do a part-time internship as well. So say you have a full course load at UTSA and you're thinking, or maybe you want to take summer school, maybe you want to stay on track to graduate, you want to take a couple political science courses over the summer, but you also want a global professional development experience, you can do a part-time program at 10 to 25 hours per week on top of your course, or on top of maybe the summer job that you're working, or on top of, the organizations that you're involved in. You can add this in addition to everything else. So that's our global remote internships. I'm seeing the chat. I see that Locke's answering some questions in the chat. Awesome. I'll go ahead and get back to those. I'll take a look at those at the end. But just so you have an idea, the big difference is going to be the team-based versus individual-based, and the opportunity to do part-time if you'd like. Yes. Look at that. I did this slide twice. So again, one is kind of a consulting project. You have a business mentor. It's really good for business, a team-based approach, and then multiple fields for individual placements. So I wanted to give you a couple examples of sample internship placements. So this is just from previous semesters. I've just given you a couple. We have a lot more, but just some that might be interesting to you. You can be a computer science intern, and then you can research and implement an Amazon text track, which is like a mobile app. It's a mobile app development project for Amazon. So that's pretty cool. You can be a sports marketing intern, providing research, insight, and analysis across a number of ongoing projects. One that an intern worked on was international expansion of the brand in a US market and other emerging markets. So that's a really cool opportunity. You can be a research and development intern, presentations or tools that can be used as demonstrations, lectures, speeches, reports, and more. And there's, again, those team-based projects. A good example is a market research for an agriculture technology company, but there's really a bunch of options, but that's just an example of a couple placements that we had last semester. So finally, I'll talk a little bit about career semester, which is a little bit different. The model and the structure is a little bit different with career semester because you really don't need any background to do the internship. So you don't have to be a biology major specifically. You don't have to be an agriculture major specifically, because the fields of the internship are very unique, which I'll get into in a second. But the way that the career semester is structured is the first 3 weeks of the internship, you're not actually going to be in your internship. You're going to be doing almost like a boot camp with an industry expert. And these are folks, this is a South African company. So these are folks primarily based in South Africa, although the internships are actually all over the world. But for the first 3 weeks, you're getting together as your team, as your career semester team, and you're being coached by these really high affluent industry professionals in the various subjects. Then from there, once you've learned all those skills you need, the rest of the semester is used to be in an internship. And that doesn't have to be in South Africa. That can be in Denmark. That can be in China. That can be in Colombia. There's a bunch of options all over the world. So you might be in the South Africa time zone and the South Africa context for the first, couple weeks. And then you're going to an internship in another country for the rest of it. But here's what's really cool. Again, they're sort of unique in nature, but they're supposed to be emerging markets in this post-COVID era. But we have a couple of different fields, including data science, digital marketing, investment finance, management consulting, product management, private equity and venture capital, web design, essentially, and web development. So they're really kind of unique offerings. So say, you are a business major, but you really want to know about investment finance. And that's really the direction you want to take your life, your career. by taking this sort of boot camp and then doing an internship, that's definitely a leg up on your resume. So a little bit different, but both really good options. So finally, how to get started. First, decide on your program. That can either be the global remote internship or it can be the career semester program. So choosing what you want and then also choosing your placement. You're going to be going through that placement process by submitting a cover letter and resume. So just making sure that you have some ideas of your career goals and what you're looking to accomplish over the course of your internship. Secondly, you'll submit applications and materials and you'll speak with our internship placement team. And that's when you're really going to need that up-to-date resume. You'll have a career counseling session. And from there, that's when we take all the information and scout outward to see what internships we can pull back. Finally, you apply online. There is a $95 application deposit up front, just so you're aware. And then finally, start your program. Like we say, use your network. You don't have to do it alone. We have plenty of folks at ISA who are going to support you through this virtual environment, but also I'm here to support you and Locke is here to support you as well. So that concludes my presentation. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing for a second so I can allow for questions primarily. But then I also just wanted to quickly show you the video of the intern. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen one more time. Hopefully y'all can see it.
Hi, I'm Alex. I want to take you through an overview of my internship period with Smartable. Are you ready? Let's go. This summer was a really great experience. I got to enhance my professional and personal background altogether. But because of the circumstances, it was a little bit different than how a normal internship would go. You see, because this was a virtual internship, I relied entirely on my laptop for pretty much everything. In a way, this was a good thing, as the main purpose of the internship was working with programming, and more specifically, app development. You see, Smartable is a technology company based out of Alicante, located in southeastern Spain, with their main focus being towards the Internet of Things, which deals with data being broadcasted between different devices. A concept that they have recently been focusing on involves digital nomads. A digital nomad is someone who works remotely, as well as with a very independent lifestyle. These people are often freelancers, and they rely on telecommunication platforms to work. The idea of being a digital nomad has become more popular throughout the world, including in Spain, and Smartable has decided to embrace this trend by designing an app that allows digital nomads to connect with one another and collaborate on projects. A classic example of how this works could involve a programmer who needs the help of a graphic designer to effectively construct a website. After learning about digital nomads, they informed me that because I had experience with developing apps, I was a good candidate for constructing one of the digital nomad-oriented apps called Nomad Party. As I stated before, the goal of this application is to allow digital nomads to effectively collaborate with one another. While I really liked the idea, my experience with app development was still quite limited, and I knew that this would be a challenge from the start. Another challenge was the language barrier. Even though my teammates knew some English, my Spanish was basically non-existent. But despite this, I was more than willing to put in the effort to overcome these obstacles. In the beginning, it was a bit rough trying to communicate, but everyone was very nice, and as time progressed, I learned some Spanish, which was helpful. In terms of app development, I was learning a lot of it as I worked, as I had never dealt with a program this advanced before. A great tool that I used a lot was YouTube, as well as Google. Unfortunately, my teammates didn't know a lot about the Swift programming language, but they were very supportive of my work and progress. From this situation, I learned how to adapt quickly to new situations as well as how to manage my time effectively, all while still learning at the same time. I think that this will definitely prepare me for life after college and future jobs, as I'm sure that I won't always be prepared for every project that I'm handed. Overall, my greatest success that I gained from my internship was that I was able to effectively develop an iOS application that performed almost all of the tasks that were requested. I also was able to become closer with my teammates, to a point where even after my internship has ended, they want me to stay connected with the company. However, some notable failures were that I did not learn as much Spanish as I had hoped, and I feel bad that I could not communicate better. It also took longer to develop the application than originally anticipated. All in all, I think this internship was a great experience that I will always remember. It really changed my life, both personally and professionally, as I was able to learn how work is done in a country besides America and how they communicate, which is important as we are all connected in today's world. And I know that I will be working with other countries in the future, perhaps as vendors or clients. I was also able to increase my knowledge of app development to a point where I feel like I can now proudly call myself an app developer. So I am truly grateful that Smartable has given me this opportunity, and I look forward to staying connected with them in the future. Thanks, Smartable.
All right. Well, hopefully you guys enjoyed that video. I feel like that does a really good job of highlighting a couple things. First of all, what a student was able to work on. That's really cool and really applicable for today's world. But also, I think what he really did really well was highlight cultural differences between Spain and the US in terms of work style, and how this internship was a good tool to learn some of those global skills and those global competency skills, and that he's still learning. And then I also loved that he talked about the emerging global market and that he knows he's going to have to work across borders in a similar situation like he did remotely this past summer. So with that concludes my presentation today. I do see that Locke has been very good about answering questions in the chat, but I invite you at this time, please feel free if you'd like to unmute yourself and ask a question or continue to ask questions in the chat. And I'll leave that open.
Sorry, showed my computer there. Hi, thank you, Zoe, for that great presentation. I did get a lot of questions. I believe I've answered all of them and we're pretty caught up, but feel free to ask and I'll answer, myself and Zoe will answer as best we could. If it's a UTSA based one, I'll be sure to answer. And if it's one regarding ISA and their programs, Zoe would be able to answer.
Yeah, I do see a question in the chat. So the price is roughly around $1,500 for the virtual program. Yes, that is correct. And the reason for that program price is that we do add on the course associated, so the career readiness course. Again, some students choose to take that for credit, and it seems like Locke was answering some questions about financial aid, and if you're taking that course for UTSA credit. So that is just baked into the program price. But whether you choose to have it transfer back to UTSA is up to you. Somebody else says, how many people are usually accepted during these study abroad internships approximately? We take each application individually, so you will get accepted to the program no matter what. What we do is we have like a ranking system. So again, we take your cover letter and your resume and we, and take your career goals and what you said in your coaching session. And we send those out to a number of connections and companies across the world. We'll get responses back. And from there, you'll sort of rank your preferences from the one you want the least to the one you want the most. And then from there, sometimes interviews will take place over Zoom. But yeah, you will get accepted to the program. It's just about finding the match that's right for you. What is the website where we can apply? Great question. I'll go ahead and drop that in the chat so y'all have that ready to go. Give me one moment.
And while
So this,
Zoe's sharing, oh, sorry.
oh, go ahead.
And while Zoe's sharing that, with all of our providers and affiliates, if you're applying through them, you also have to apply through us. But as an internship, we do have a specific page for that. So once you've applied through ISA, please reach out to us to apply. Or if you don't, Zoe will always reach out to me with a list of students who have applied through them, and then I'll reach out to you to provide the link to apply on our end, so we could make sure we do things like maintain your student status, make sure you're up to date with checking in with your advisor and other assistance for your application on the UTSA end.
Great. I see another question saying an in-person is $4,000, and that's on the inexpensive end. So there's a range of programs. I would say probably on average they probably cost around $6,000 to $7,000. I would say that's a good general rule of thumb, although some are higher and some are lower. The $4,000 was in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam. And again, as I sort of talked about before, that's just due to cost of living, that program price is a little bit lower, but there's a variety of program prices based on where you go. I see a question from Layla about study abroad virtual programs, or is that a different session? That is this session. Unfortunately, we have concluded that portion of the presentation. However, Locke, correct me if I'm wrong, this is being recorded and will be shared out to everyone. Is that correct, Locke?
Yes. So we're gonna share this later at the end of after the end of this week. We'll just get all the videos together and we'll upload them to YouTube and have all the links on our website where you could access all of them. So don't fret, y'all haven't missed out. And we'll have it pretty front and center on our main website, so you could find the links pretty easily. Let's see. There's another question from Katie if there will be other Zoom sessions later this week. There definitely will be. We're gonna have 2 a day. This is the last one for today, but we'll have one until 2 until Friday.
Michelle asked, is the deadline for the summer internship soon? Yes. Yeah, for this for this summer specifically, they're coming up very quickly. And I'll repost the website in a second there, William. But yeah, no, I would say get this process started as quickly as possible. We are more than willing to extend some deadlines, especially for virtual opportunities. In person, most things are canceling at this point. So that's past. But if you are interested in pursuing a virtual internship for the summer, please get that process started as soon as possible. I'll put my email in the chat, but it will be helpful if you reach out to me, and I can make sure that I'm pushing you through to the right people and getting that done quickly, because some deadlines have passed, but some are rolling deadlines. So we just want to make sure that's happening as quickly as possible. All right, once again, I've posted the ISA website. That's where you're going to apply. Looks like Locke posted more information about the podcast. I didn't know that was happening, so I'm actually going to go listen to it. Lynn says, does the website have deadlines for all semesters? Yes, Lynn, it does. It does list out like summer deadlines, fall and spring. That's the same for you, Locke?
Yes. So UTSA, we have deadlines that stay the same throughout the years. With summer being February 15th, March, fall being March 15th, but our deadlines are adjustable. So if you apply within the deadlines of our providers, we could always move your deadline. Ours is just in place so you know when we expect you to finish applying, and it's in your best interest because if you apply by those dates, you're typically in a good range to apply for other scholarships and things like that. but we won't stop you from studying abroad or pursuing any international or virtual opportunities. They're just there for your benefit and as more of a guidance.
One last thing, I am going to put my email in the chat, just so y'all have it if you have any questions and would like to reach out. Thank you, everyone. If you don't have any further questions, please feel free to exit as you'd like. But it was wonderful to see you all, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk to you a little bit about virtual programs. Locke and I will hang out for a few minutes if you'd like to stay behind and ask a question. But thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Adrian, I guess Locke, that would be more directed at you. Yeah, so we can still apply for study abroad for next semester, I'm assuming for fall.
Yes, so I definitely recommend applying. What I tell students is to not currently make any financial commitments just in case things don't work out, and also to register for UTSA courses, just in case if things don't work out, you always have those to fall back on. But if you are able to study abroad, feel free to withdraw from your UTSA courses before the census and payment deadlines. I believe Michelle had a question for you as well, Zoe.
Can we apply for both team and individual placements if we're not sure which one is best for us yet? Absolutely, yes. When you apply, it'll kind of be a catch-all for both the team and the individual. And then once you do your career coaching session, they'll ask you to decide which one you want to do. So yeah, you can have somebody on our team kind of talk you through which opportunity you think is going to be best for you. But yeah, please feel free to put both in there. Do we have any additional questions from the group? All right. If not, I'm going to go ahead and remove you from the meeting. No hard feelings. But if you don't have any any more questions, we'll see you all later.
And so that was really good.